Hi, everyone. I wanted to just share some of my ideas on gamification here. So I wrote them down and I'm sharing a quick video. So if you're interested in gamification to increase engagement, welcome. Excited to share some of my insights with you. So what we're going to be doing is one, I just want to review some gamification trends, talk about things that you're probably already aware of and why they work and where they don't work. And then I just want to talk about some new gamification ideas that I have to increase engagement. And a lot of these come from the realm of project-based learning. So I want you to just think really quick. What's already popular? Like, what are the gamification things that you see? Where do you see games being brought into applications or educational institutions? Where do they work and where are they overused? And I think that probably what you're picturing in your mind here is something like Class Dojo or some kind of badge system or LinkedIn Learning. And I think that those are the main things that we typically see. A lot of people call these the big five of gamification. I've smashed together levels and progress bars, but these things work when in certain places, right? Points allow us to encourage certain behaviors. Places like Reddit and Twitter, you see the number go up, you feel good, you continue to use the service. LinkedIn Learning is probably the place where badges exist the most, and we have Coursera and Google and other organizations that have come in and put legitimacy behind those badges to thank for those actually meaning something and doing something and motivating people. Leaderboards are great if you have really motivated people who are competing against each other in some kind of skill setting. But leaderboards, if they track the wrong data, don't necessarily motivate people. So an example of this is a leaderboard that tracks who tweets the most is tracking the wrong data. It's not about how many tweets I put out there. It's about how much attention I get, right? And then levels and progress bars. These things obviously motivate us to some extent. Levels, you can think very clearly of, Sky Miles reward programs. As you hit new levels, you unlock new abilities, and that is exciting and motivating for you. And then progress bars. I haven't seen a tutorial in the last 10 years that didn't have a progress bar because that allows us to know how far in the process are we, how much more energy is this going to take, and typically motivates us to continue along in the process. So these things exist, and as I said, and I just listed off some good uses of them, they exist and they have great uses, right? But a lot of them are overused. Almost all of these different types of gamification rely on extrinsic motivation, so outside motivation instead of internal motivation or intrinsic motivation. And honestly, these are not the things that we love about games. I've never heard anyone tell me that they love Super Mario because they get to see the numbers of the points go up every time they collect a coin. These aren't necessarily the things that actually super engage us in games. And so while they're the easiest to implement, we're leaving a lot of chances to gamify things and bring game systems into our learning systems or our software in order to actually engage people and keep them in a loop. So now I'm going to switch over and I'm going to share some of my ideas. And I'm going to be honest, almost all these ideas were stolen from the concept of project-based learning, because I think that project-based learning is a simulation, which is very similar to a game. So let's take a look here. My first insight from project-based learning is that there is joy in experimentation and in discovery. It's really helpful to figure things out yourself. It's really motivating to figure things out by yourself. Sometimes putting a big red arrow over something and saying, this is where you're going to go next, doesn't exactly motivate people in the same way that discovering things yourself or experimenting by yourself can bring about, the joy that can bring about. My number one example of this is Minecraft. The first time I opened up the crafting menu in Minecraft and got to play around and experiment, the game in Minecraft doesn't tell you how to build a pickaxe. You have to play around with the different combinations of crafting until you start to realize the things that you can make. Of course, you can go online and look it up, but the joy of it being up to me to figure out how much experimentation I do really hooked me into Minecraft early, years and years ago, right? And that's why it's still one of the best-selling games 10 years later. And all of this kind of connects to Maria Montessori's understanding of what motivates children in the classroom, right? And so when we give kids a chance to explore, to play around with themselves, it feels like it's their little arena and they get to enjoy the discovery themselves. Now, how do we implement this? There needs to be a low cost to experiment. This is really hard to do, to just like let people run wild if it's very costly for them to experiment. So make it easy for people to undo their mistakes, and then give clear signposting. You don't have to put giant red arrows over things if everything is kind of intuitively laid out and simplistic in terms of your layout of your website. So low cost to experiment, clear signposting allows people to experiment, and you don't need to hold their hand every portion of the way. And then I would also say there's real value in having hidden features or having things that not everyone is going to connect with. Finding the hidden area in a game, unlocking a hidden mechanic that not everyone experiences, is this real like prideful moment of, oh my God, I figured this out, I'm doing it. So you don't have to have every feature used by every person, but you should make it rewarding and exciting when people do find your hidden areas. Okay, beyond the joy of experimentation, I want to talk about the idea of navigating risk in simulations. Games are simulations of the real world, right? When you're playing Monopoly, you're simulating owning property. When you're playing Ticket to Ride, you're simulating running a railroad, right? But when we are in these simulations, we're actually given a lot of psychological safety that allows us to take risks that we wouldn't typically take. If I say to you, write me a business plan, it has to make some money, there's going to be a lot of things and hangups in your mind here kind of blocking your creative process. If I say, hey, this is a game and you're writing a business plan for a fictional world, I think that people are able to be a little bit more vulnerable, show a little bit more of themselves because they have that psychological safety. Examples of where I've seen this: Dungeons and Dragons is this incredible place where people get to experiment with their personality, with the way that they present themselves, their social skills, especially working with students. I've seen students young people really learn how to navigate risk inside of the context of D&D, whether that be risk of trying out a different personality or just being comfortable with their character being in danger. These are things that we have to like get used to, right? And they allow us to reflect on ourselves. The other thing is that experiments that allow people to fail with low consequences. Like an egg drop is an incredible experience where you're asking a young person to take on the role of an engineer in a simulation, right? And the stakes are low. If the egg breaks, the egg breaks. But you get to have this pride in this moment of feeling like you are an engineer, like you are simulating this thing here. So create simulations in order to allow people to feel that they can take on risks. All right, last thing here, or not last, second to last thing, novel audiences for storytelling, right? People want to tell their story to a new audience. It is really engaging in order to sit down with a new group of people and tell your audience a new group of people the thing and the insight that you have. Each time you do it to a new group of people, it's totally different. Dungeons and Dragons is this great vehicle that I have where I'm storytelling in front of 6 friends, right? And every time I sit down in front of someone new, it's this new experience of me getting to kind of show off in front of a new audience here. Going back to the idea of badges here, there is this thing of we do sometimes like to show off our accolades, but they need to mean something to the group, right? And so here is like a tier list where somebody has said, hey, here are the best, these are all for like show, right? But they've still ranked it here because there is like a community understanding of who's better and who's worse. And so when we create that like audience for people, it really motivates them, but you have to build the audience into the experience. Okay, my last idea here is just, I think that it's really helpful. Games are always thinking in the concept of loops, right? And so you can't see down here at the bottom, but implement, evaluate, design, implement, right? We have this nice little cycle of iteration here. And in project-based learning, the idea is each iteration that you do of your project gets closer and closer to the real world, farther away from simulation and closer towards the real world. And those kind of abilities to to kind of like slowly remove the guardrails, reduce the bumpers that we have on the lanes each pass, each chance that you get, is really motivating to people because it makes them feel that they're ready for the next step. One of the more interesting games to come out in the last couple of years is called Loop Hero, and your character just walks around this loop and engages in battles. You can't actually control your character, you control the loop. And so this ability to design levels and test them out and figure out what works and what fails is incredibly motivating. Same thing with Slay the Spire. I think that both of these games represent a new genre of game where you get to actually design the experience yourself here and iterate each time you restart the game because there's a low cost to failure. Okay, I hope that you found this helpful here. If you want to connect more, talk about gamification, technology in the classroom, or how to make engaging learning experiences for your users, please follow up with me. I'm really excited to continue to connect with people on this, and would love if you could drop a visit to my website, cbklearning.com. Thank you so much. I hope this was helpful, and please follow up if you have any questions or you want to jam on any of these ideas. Bye.